all for coming. My name is Vanessa Fleur. I am the publisher of Natural Awakenings magazine and your host of our speaker panels. I'm also an advocate for cannabis and volunteer with San Diego Americans for Safe Access doing their education committees. We have some representatives from that organization as well. I thank all of our panels for taking their time to be here. There's some really powerful people here, so thank you for coming and listening to what they have to say. I will introduce our esteemed moderator, AJ Harrington. You probably are familiar with the name if you've read any High Times magazines in the last 20 so years. So I will have him come up and he will be introducing our speakers. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Vanessa. I actually haven't been in the community that long. Well, I guess I have, really, if you consider personal use. Thank you all for being here. Our panel, this first panel of the day, is how to get involved in the cannabis community. And there are many roles that individuals can fill in the cannabis community, both locally and at a state level and even nationwide, and even globally at this point. So that's what we're here to talk about, is how you can get involved. And I know this is a job fair, so we have several questions in that vein. And unfortunately, we don't anticipate having time to take questions from the audience, but as Vanessa said, the panel will be available in the business mixer area afterwards. So please feel free to go down there and introduce yourself and pick their brains. Okay, so as Vanessa mentioned, I'm a freelance writer. I write for High Times, I write for Cannabis Now, I write for Mary Jane, Hemp Magazine. So kind of all over the community, or the cannabis space, if you will. And we're gonna start by introducing our panelists. The first panelist is Dion Markgraf, who is the VP of Hemp Tech Global and the Vice President of the U.S. Hemp Building Association. And we'll give Dion an opportunity to introduce himself.
Hello, my name's Dion Markgraf. Thanks for having me. Exciting to see everyone. And I've been in the cannabis hemp industry for 30 years. And it's interesting, this event, seeing someone from high school, a friend from college. So it's a very good vibes. I'm happy things have evolved. I've been involved in every aspect of the industry. I opened the first hemp store in Europe in 1993. I started the High Times Cannabis Cup in my shop in Amsterdam. I opened the first dispensary here in San Diego in '97. Started San Diego ASA. Helped start the CBD industry. And now I'm doing hemp construction with a group called the USHBA, U.S. Hemp Building Association. So construction is a $1.3 trillion per year industry. It's going to be the biggest part of hemp and cannabis. You know, I'm a super friendly guy to cannabinoids, but it's going to crush that side of the industry. And yeah, San Diego should get in it. And my advice to everyone and anyone in this regard is to engage. So that's and consume, I should say, too, of course. You know, in every way possible. My clothes are hemp. You know, I eat hemp seeds. Ideally live in a hemp house. You know, use hemp whenever possible. That's my message. And of course, cannabinoids. Thank you.
And our next panelist is Terry Best, the San Diego Chapter Chair of Americans for Safe Access.
Hi, everybody. I'm a little nervous. So I'm the Chapter Chair of Americans for Safe Access. It's already been mentioned twice, if you will take notice. Dion is our founder, and Vanessa Fleur is the chair of our education subcommittee at San Diego ASA. I started my activism because I was trying to single-handedly stop the drug war. I knew people that were getting pummeled by police, going to prison for drug addiction, for drug use. And when I started to realize, this was years ago, and I started to realize how they were treating cannabis patients, how the police were treating cannabis patients, and the fact that they were getting raided for growing and providing medical cannabis to patients, I got on board with that. It seemed like such a completely benign substance, and these people were sick. They weren't just recreational drug users of cocaine. These were sick people using medicine. So I decided to go ahead and start following that, and that's how I met Dion. Dion was on his, fourth raid by the time I came on the scene? Third or... He said, in this country. So we had a lot of work to do. I did a lot of court support and did a lot of advocacy, and took the chapter as the chair in 2014, but actually started with the chapter in 2009. So I've been here a while, and I'm going to tell you, it's just showing up. That's 80% of it. Just show up and add your voice. That's really how you get involved with activism. It's hard to get to show up. Once you can do that, you're in. You're done. You're an activist. Thank you.
Great. And our next panelist is Joel Weisberger, the chairman of the San Diego County Farm Bureau's Cannabis Working Group.
Hello, everyone. Joel Weisberger. Yes, I am the chairman of the Cannabis Working Group for the San Diego County Farm Bureau. I'm also the CEO of White Mountain Cannabis Company. We're licensed to cultivate THC up in Oceanside, and we also have a line of CBD pre-rolls that we're putting out. Long-time smoker. I mean, I started smoking at 15. I'm very passionate about it. I've been arrested for it. I've been raided. I've gone through the whole gamut. I started getting active politically with Americans for Safe Access. Same thing. I got in. I realized, hey, if this is something we really want to do, we all have to get involved and move forward. That political activism actually led me down into the Farm Bureau, and with the Farm Bureau, I work politically I worked with the city of Oceanside to help get their ordinance on the book. We're trying to get in with the county of San Diego to get them to see, some common sense on things. And I think the biggest thing it is activism. I think a lot of people think that with Prop 215 and Prop 64 passing, that, the hard work's been done, the heavy lifting, we just got to wait. It's not true. The fact is, if you look at the books, 70% of municipalities in the state voted in favor of Prop 64, yet only 30% of municipalities have any kind of ordinance on the book that allows it. Everyone else has a ban. So the politicians are not listening to their constituents. It's time for the constituents, us people, to get out there and start being active. Write letters, be active, show up to vote. If you want this in your life and you don't want to get arrested for it, we have to take action now. This really is a grassroots movement. So that's my biggest thing to say on that is be politically active.
And our next panelist is Elizabeth Mack. She is a registered nurse and the founder of Holistic Caring.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for coming. I lend a true medical voice to this panel, and I've been a nurse for 33 years, spent 10 years in hospitals, and then 20 years in insurance companies once I got my MBA in healthcare administration and ended up going into operations and then sales. And my last real job was sales manager for Anthem Blue Cross for the County of San Diego, running employee benefits. So my intention is to go back there and teach them how to add cannabis as something that's a covered benefit. But for now, I opened Holistic Caring to bridge the gap between traditional and cannabis medicine for true patients that are saying, how do I use this? How do I replace pharmaceuticals? How does this work? What are the cannabinoids? What are the different modes of administration? And namely, how do I use this without being high and not smoking? So unlike most of us that like to have a pre-roll once in a while, these patients a lot of times don't. And so how to bridge the gap and get them to be comfortable with the system and give people another option on the treatment plan when they've had 10 to 20 pills a day, and how to wean them down off of that. So that's my role. Thank you.
And our next panelist. Our next panelist is Jonathan Forstott, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at Jetty Extracts.
Thanks AJ. Thanks everyone. It's great to be here today. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Jetty. Been with the company about 2.5 years. Jetty started here in San Diego back in 2013, and because of some of the challenges of extracting here, we moved production up to Oakland. And Our production facility is still in Oakland where we make all of our extracts, concentrates. But we also have a sales and marketing office, which is up the road here in Normal Heights, which is where I work, so I get to stay in San Diego. But I think I represent one of the new people in cannabis. This is my first cannabis role in my whole career. So I've been in marketing my whole life, pretty much, from the agency side in New York to running marketing up Taylor Guitars down here in East County, Fender up in LA. Got kind of invited into this industry, and it's been a great learning experience, unlike anything else I've ever done, to be totally honest, but in a great way. Never-ending challenges, but just a fantastic community that's been really, really welcoming to me, and it's been a great ride, and looking forward to wherever the ride takes me from here. So thanks for having me. Looking forward to chatting with everybody.
And next up is Randall Patton, the co-founder of Candescent and the Torbis Group.
Thanks for having me, guys. Excuse me, my throat today. I've been in San Diego, growing since '95. Had dispensaries through Point Loma, North County. I've always been on the forefront trying to work with cities to get those licenses through. Did that until 2015, started Candescent. It was basically the first licensed cultivation company in California in a municipality. Worked with multiple municipalities at this point to build a couple 100,000 square foot of cultivation. And currently, just the last few years, I've kind of sat back a little bit and watched the industry and just kind of getting back in. And I think we're about to hit a new cycle, and there's going to be a lot of opportunity coming through for everybody. So it's welcome to be here. Thanks, guys.
And rounding out our panel is Joe Aaron, the founder of Formulator and the CEO of MJ's Therapeutic Brands.
Hello, everyone. Usually I'm first because my last name's Aaron, but unless the Aardvark family's here. So I created a brand called MJ's. I've been in the industry for about 10 years. My first products, I was all down here in San Diego, is MJ's Wild Nectars. And they were a tincture, kind of. Not really a tincture, but similar to that, oral absorption. And it wasn't until about 2014 that I started making medical cannabis products. My first cancer remission was with the mayor, or pro tem, whatever they call that guy, in Bonsall, up in northern San Diego. He had a squamous cell carcinoma and went into remission about 45 days. And I didn't believe it was my stuff. I just, blew him off. But to date, we have 48 remissions with these protocols. And I'm on the medical side. I have a manufacturing facility being built right now in Santa Ana. And one thing I hope we can discuss a little later is the shared use license. Everybody who wants to get into the industry, I've never met a more perfect group of people than I have in the cannabis industry. I was in banking, and there's just a lot of good people in this industry. They're doing it for the right reasons. And there are some bad seeds out there, but we'll stomp them out as we go along. But I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think right now we're going through a transition period, and all of these guys can attest it's not as easy as everybody says. It's definitely not like the black market. And there's a lot more regulation to kind of get through. But with that and the hemp side of things globally, I think it's probably the best industry to get into moving forward. And I'm glad I'm here. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay, let's get into the questions for the panel. We wouldn't be here where we are today without the work of cannabis activists. And post Prop 64, I'm wondering, what are the priorities of cannabis activism and how can people get involved? And I think we'll start with Terry with that one.
So it may look like cannabis is legal, but we still do not have any rights in a lot of very important areas, specifically housing. You can still get kicked out of your house if your landlord doesn't want you to use cannabis in his property. You can also be denied some kinds of pain medicines and pain therapies if your doctor finds that you test positive for cannabis. You can also be under scrutiny for using cannabis as a parent and on the job. So we have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of advocacy to be done. There's a lot of outrage to be focused at your politicians who aren't listening to us. And I would say that's job number one, is to make sure that we have basic rights for using, especially medical cannabis, but recreational is, also being under attack because there's no real way to tell impairment by serum. So if you have a certain amount of alcohol in your blood, it's pretty obvious that you're going to see a level of impairment, but that isn't the case with cannabis because it stays in your system for so long. It's stored in your fat cells and you burn it off and can be completely competent to drive or operate machinery and still test positive for it. So there's no test, but boy, are they trying to put it to a level. This is why we have to pay attention to this issue very carefully, because the police want to see it at a serum level, like alcohol. They want a certain percentage that they can arrest, over a certain percentage in your blood, they can arrest you for. And that isn't grounded in science. It's not rooted in science at all. So we have to be careful how we vote and how we talk to our politicians about being under the influence of cannabis and just how impaired you are if you've smoked 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 days. That kind of thing needs to all be sorted out. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just jump in on this also on the activism side. I think this year with an election year, it is very important to be active. And I think a lot of times people feel a little overwhelmed, like, oh, what am I going to do or anything else? I just want to let you guys, I am not a lobbyist. I'm not a professor. I didn't even graduate high school, honestly. Yet I've made major leaps and bounds with Oceanside and the things that I've done with the Farm Bureau. And one thing I'd like to say in all the meetings that I've gone to at the county and city levels and things like that, be very well spoken. Know your facts and your information. One of the biggest things people do is they write people off in the industry if you don't say it exactly, if you don't know the science, if you don't know what you're talking about. And at the end of the day, when you're being an activist, everyone understands that it helps with cancer and it helps with pain and this and that. What we really need to do is come in with common sense policies and be putting these forward. And don't be afraid to go to city council meetings, to supervisor meetings. Don't be afraid to write letters to people and to the politicians and express how you want. I can tell you that in my experience in San Diego County working politically, there is a very small but very vocal group of anti-marijuana people that travel to every single council meeting and the county meetings and everything else. And they get up there and they spew the old reefer madness stuff. They talk about all the points that have been debunked by modern science and everything else. But people listen to them. And it's maybe a dozen people, but they are very vocal and they go to every single meeting. And these people are making they're one of our biggest opponents in the San Diego area, and it holds things back. And so we can do the same thing as activists. When I go to an ASA meeting, I know that there's a lot more cannabis users in San Diego County that show up to these meetings. I mean, I'd say it's less than 1% at the meeting of all the cannabis users in San Diego. We need to come together and have a unified voice. We need to let our elected officials know where we stand on this and that we have a right to do it. And I think it's not just for wealthy people and lobbyists. Even the average person can do this. We all can get involved. If anyone here has any aspirations of being in the cannabis industry and they want a job, the industry needs to move further along and be able to hire everyone in the room. We'd love to be able to give everyone jobs, but we need to get moved further along. And that means we need activism. We need the average people to come out and say, hey, enough with the regulations and restrictions, enough with the barriers to entry, enough with all that. We need to be able to get in. I mean, you look at, city of San Diego, what we have, maybe 15 licensed dispensaries now. How many liquor stores do we have? Or at least liquor licenses, I haven't looked it up. I probably should have beforehand, but every CVS, every liquor store, there on every corner, how is it possible that there's that many liquor stores, yet we have 13 dispensaries? It's ridiculous. So it's important for the average person to get up to, it takes nothing to write a letter to someone. And the political establishment, the way they look at it is one letter equals like 100 voices. So if you take the time to write one letter, you've spoken for 100 people the way they see it. If you actually show up to a council meeting, that's like the equivalent of like 1,000 opinions. So it magnifies and keeps going from there. So that's my point on activism. Thank you.
So just to chime in, I basically got into this 30 years ago at SDSU for political reasons, you know, so that's, you know, my main thing. So I've done all these other things in that regard. And where we are now, we've kind of gone through we're at the end of the beginning. And now we're at a point where we need to accrue our economic and political power. So that's what this is about. This is about money. This is about rights. And so, you know, this activity and our jobs, we need to, you know, bring that power together. And I think we're doing that, and there's many groups to get involved with. So there's really no excuses these days. And I just want to point out, you know, even though we've made all these advances, when you're at the end of your life, you know, when you're at a you know, the time you're really going to need cannabinoids, our parents, our kids, you know, we have no rights, you know, and then we'll be like all this blasé attitude about a lot of this stuff when we think back when, you know, this is the time to act and to come together. And of course, on my side of the equation that I'm trying to spearhead now, this is also about the environment. You know, this is big picture stuff. And San Diego can and will lead the way. You know, we've helped start a lot of this stuff. So I'm very encouraged, you know, but again, let's translate that power and keep investing in that power cycle of cannabis and positive changes.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on the local level for sure, but don't forget about federal. I have a dream that cannabis is going to be descheduled. If cannabis has worked for you medically or for a family member, write to your congressman, your senators, talk about how we need to deschedule this so that it can be treated like a medicine, so we can research it and find out the best path to clinical therapeutics for cannabis, but also the state. To create, in my dreams, there's a separate program for medical. The current tax system creates a parody of using cannabis as medicines. You don't go to CVS and pay 30% on your gabapentin or whatever else you're taking for multiple conditions. And so, you know, for me to try and bridge the gap and bring truly medical patients into here, we need to have something that makes sense. So on the federal and state levels, please help me advocate to deschedule and to have a separate tax system for medical.
I think there's a few more seats too. If any of the folks outside want to come in, you're welcome to. You know, on the brand side too, for Jetty, you know, this is something we feel passionate about as well. We run a program called the Shelter Project, which we started in 2014, and we give free cannabis to cancer patients. And for all the great Prop 64 did, it virtually made it impossible for us to give cannabis away. And we tried, along with lots of other passionate people, to fix that. A year or so ago, a bill went through the Senate, state Senate, but was vetoed by Governor Brown at the time. It came back again as SB 34, which was recently approved. And you know, we were involved in doing all sorts of campaigns. We did a roadshow all up and down the coast, at the state, with support from big brands like PAX and others. And my point really is that everything that everyone said here is so important, and there's also proof that it can work, right? And so it passed. It's being implemented now. It'll take a while, but we're really excited to be able to, you know, look at getting the program back up and running again and making a difference. So all this stuff really, really does work.
What I'd like to add is cannabis is medical and recreational, both sides of the spectrum. People get relief in many different doses. The range of benefits are astronomical, and we've got about 70 years of propaganda that we have to flip back and reteach the communities how important cannabis is. And two things I always tell people. The first one is when someone says, "Oh, I don't do cannabis, never touch the stuff," and I then tell them, well, you're making it every day in your body naturally, so you're actually denying your own body, because we all make cannabinoids in our body. That's why cannabis works on us. So for people like that, I try to do a soft approach, because some of them have been propagandized to the point where they just, even when they're stage 4 cancer patients and they've had every option on the table, they'll still refuse to try it. So we still have a long way to go, but education is really important. I think it's the backbone of this industry moving forward. And as I tell my patients, hey, I'm recreational, but you have to be medical right now. And what I mean by that is I provide low-dose cannabis therapies to people. My products are a maximum of 50 milligrams a day to these patients. So there's zero high, from the 3-year-old kid with cancer to a 90-year-old person with dementia. So there's a lot to still learn, and I think we all have the ability to teach not only our family and friends, but our communities. So let's just keep rolling in that direction. No pun intended.
Yeah, I know we've been in this price strong, I guess only a couple years legal, but we got to remember this is very, very early in this industry, man. I mean, we got a long way to go. This first wave kind of hit hard, but, I heard a number yesterday that 20% of the flower being cultivated legally is all that's being dispensed, 80% sitting around. So going to our cities, to our counties is still really important. The state, in order to get our state licenses, we got to be local first. So we need more businesses, we need more dispensaries, we need more local cultivation, we need it all. So still, just because we're legal doesn't mean we're ready to go. Absolutely, we got to keep being on it, keep coming into our local Vista. Vista just opened, but other North County cities need it still. So, it's not done, still got a long way to go. So thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. And next question. As the legal cannabis business environment continues to mature, knowing weed or having a keen interest in the subject is no longer enough to gain employment in the industry. What skills are employers looking for in job candidates? And we'll start with Jonathan on this one.
Yeah, this is a subject we talk about a lot at Jetty. In short, we need every traditional business skill that all the other industries need. I think there was a time, even a few years ago, where cannabis experience probably was enough to get started. The hustle, the experience being around it was truly important, and it still is in many degrees, in many positions, but there are lots of positions now that require traditional business skills, whether it's on the sales side or key account management side, where there were days where you were talking to lots of individual dispensary buyers. Now you may be talking to a big multi-store operator with central buying out of Arizona, right? And that's a whole different skill set than what was required before. And so it was even true in my career, back in the guitar industry, where I would meet people all the time. I would just say, I am so passionate about Taylor. I've been playing Taylor all my life, and I just have to do anything to work here. And I would say, I appreciate that. I love that. But tell me about your marketing career. What skills can you bring to the table with marketing? And where I always landed was, you can learn to play guitar, you can learn cannabis, you can really become ingrained in this industry, but you've got to have the skills that the traditional types of businesses need, and it's becoming more and more common that we see that now.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
So I'm innovating clinical programs that are going to teach clinicians, so providers. Imagine a chiropractor, acupuncture, naturopath. They all have 100,000 patients. So if I teach them cannabis medicine and then they add that to their practice, they're going to be adding those skills. And so in March, I'm going to be launching a whole program for cannabis health coaches. So if you know anybody that is an alternative provider that is a low-hanging fruit, not necessarily a medical doctor or a nurse practitioner, although they're coming when it's descheduled. But you can bring all of who you are, wherever you've been and whatever skills you've acquired up till this point. You can play that forward. You're going to need customer service, sales, which is just really great service and education. You're going to need to have critical thinking skills. You're going to need to be honest and be full of integrity. So these are things that you can't duplicate, but you need to think on your feet and just continue to just deliver every day as the service of excellence, and you'll find where you're supposed to end up.
So I'll jump in on that and expand a little bit on Elizabeth's point too, is it's passion. It really is, that's part of it, and doing your best. Part of the reason I'm here today is because when I started growing weed out of a buddy's property way up in the mountains of Duluth, I wanted to grow the best. I was a connoisseur myself. I love it. I want the best for my own personal stash, really, you know what I mean? And if I can share my personal stash with the world, that's great. But that passion is what drove me. That passion is what makes me put out the best product and to keep moving forward. I come from a construction background. Hard work and efficiency and work ethic were drilled into me. And so that's a big thing. As an employer, you know, if you don't necessarily have the executive skills to come in and be sales or marketing or whatever, your entry-level position, you know, you don't need to have a bunch of experience. For my business, I don't need my employees to have a bunch of experience in growing. That can all be taught. I'd almost rather have you have almost no experience so I can teach you the way what I want is that passion. I want someone who will show up to work every day and on time and who will put in that 100%. I work hard to create a family atmosphere in the company. I want someone to come in and treat it like family and fight for my company. I put a lot into it, a lot of sacrifice into where I'm being. I want to bring people along and give people good careers, but I need it to go all the way. And that's one of the biggest issues I've heard from other growers and other things. You get these people, they come in, they work 6 months, they want stock options, and they want to be an executive. It's just not realistic to think of it that way. You know, there are people that have paid dues and gone to jail and been arrested. 20 years they've been paying dues just to be where they are now, so it takes a little while, but the opportunity is there. Bring your best game.
Very nice, Joel. So I will tell you that with my organization, we have chapters all over the country, and most of them are in California. They're advocacy chapters. You've heard them mentioned, ASA, the ASA chapter. Almost all of the people who wanted jobs out of the volunteer pool in the ASA family have gotten jobs. Heidi with Flocana. Dion got really his dream job. There was Courtney, Tony. Do you remember all the San Francisco people, Vanessa? So if you get involved with activism, you'll learn as you go. You'll learn everything that you know. You'll make connections. It's a very friendly group here in San Diego, and there are a lot of events and ways to engage. So again, show up. I will introduce you to everybody I know if you show up to my meeting, and find you connections. If you're looking for a job, if you are offering massage therapy and you want a good product for oil product that you want to use, there's so many ways to connect, and activism is the bridge to that. It truly is. And you get hired. Activists get hired. They do. ASA activists all got hired. There's at least 8, and I can't think of them right now, but they did. Thanks, guys.
All right, I'm going to elaborate on this passion thing at work, right? So, I mean, there's a whole wide variety of us in here, you know, and as an entrepreneur, or are you looking for a job? If you're looking for a job, you know, go in, you know, find what you enjoy to do every day. If I'm going to hire people, I don't want them to be there and not like it, right? You got to be there. You want to be loving every minute of it. You want to show up. You want to have good energy. You know, it's fun to be around. We all like to be around it. You know, so if you want to be, you know, be in a position where you do the same thing every day and you love it, great. You know, and then there's entrepreneurs who get bored and they want to grow, you know, and right now that's perfect in this industry as well. So, you know, there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of opportunities. I definitely feel, you know, the entrepreneurial role right now in this industry is really fun. It's scary sometimes. There's a lot of discomfort, but that's the rooms you want to be in. There's a lot more things about to happen, really, you know. So just pick your spot, you know, pick that thing you enjoy doing every day, whatever it may be, doesn't matter what it is, and just show up and have a good time. That's about it.
And I just wanted to add, cannabis and hemp are probably the most important plant on this planet. The global market for hemp is absolutely astronomical. And I agree. I think building houses out of hemp and everything else is going to be great. I always used to say, you know, the U.S. is going to pot. That's just the way it's going to be. And now we're there. And I do think we'll get federally legal here one day. I don't know how long it'll take. I always look outside for the Predator pharma drones when I go outside. Taking me out, but you do have to have drive. I think you actually have to be more on top of your game in this industry than other industries, because the taxes that are created, the regulation that's been created, the new laws. People, they voted for legalization, but what happened with that legalization was they actually put in a bunch of laws now. So if you break those laws, you could be prosecuted. Prior to the legalization, there was no way to prosecute because there wasn't a law in the books. Now there are. So being a state licensed manufacturer, I can't sell into the black market. If I do, I'd be banned for 5 years. So it's not going to be easy, but it's definitely rewarding, and it's really the future of our nation, I believe, of the world globally. And if we're all seeds here today, we just need to go out and sow them out there and create the best industry we can. And like I said in the beginning, I've never met such incredibly genuine, authentic people than I have in this industry. And yeah, I was in mortgage and all that, and there's a lot of dirty people in that industry. But it's a great path to take. I always say it's an incredible path to help other people. And that's the beauty of cannabis. It's so abundant, and hemp so abundant in its value that there's a little piece for everybody. So get out there and grab it.
Just wanted to add one more thing. When I joined Jetty, it was right on the cusp of the rollout of the legalized market, and the people that predated me at Jetty, they ran the risk of being arrested just for showing up to work. And when I joined the company, I didn't. That was pretty much gone, and I actually feel guilty about that sometimes. And so you've got, we were talking about passion. It really is so important. You need the traditional business skills, but you have to have the passion for this plant and for this notion that we're all building something. And the challenges that we face in this market, I haven't experienced anything like it in my previous career. And so it takes that commitment to it and that passion for it to get through all of these hurdles, truly.
I just want to add one more thing too. You mentioned your fellow coworkers were raided. This was what activism was about 10 years ago, showing up to raids with a bullhorn and heckling the police, and also yelling into the buildings, telling patients that they shouldn't talk to the police, that we are out here, we're for them, they're safe, it's going to take a while, they'll be free, don't talk to the police, just over and over again. And that was it. And I did that for my community, and what evolved out of that was at least once a year somebody will come up to me and say, Terry, I feel so much safer because you're in the community. All for just going in with a bullhorn. I'm not an attorney. I didn't get him from being racked up, couldn't keep him from being racked up in court. It was just me out there with a bullhorn and as many people as I could get to come with me. And just making sure that the people around knew that there wasn't anything dangerous going on in there. It was people trying to get their medicine, and that was what the police were doing there. So I think that's really important, to have somebody come up to you. A big guy came up to me, it was Greg Magdoff, came up and said, I feel so much safer, and that felt so good. So really, if you're giving back, people are going to notice, and they appreciate it.
And I'd just like to expand on that also. I was a grower, I got raided, and that was when I first met Terry. Terry showed up, we were actually down at the sheriff's department picking up our stuff after months-long court battle. And I was at the point in my growing career, I was ready to throw up my hands and give up. It was tough, I'd lost everything. They came in and ripped all our stuff out, we went to court, showed paperwork, and they gave it back. And we went to the sheriff's substation to pick up all of our product, and Terry brought in the news. And Terry got there with the news, and we didn't feel alone. And it empowered me to keep going. I was like, no, you know what? I didn't just get beat down. This was a setback. Get back up, dust myself off, keep going. And I'd really like to thank Terry and Asa for that, and that's what makes me a diehard. I love going to their meetings.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay, I would like the panel to discuss opportunities for small entrepreneurs, specifically shared cannabis use facilities and anything else that you might think of, and we'll start with Joe.
Yeah, shared use. Has anybody ever heard of that? Shared use licenses? Okay, so In some cities in California, you can obtain a state license for manufacturing. You don't have to go buy a building or rent one for a year before they approve you. You can find a facility that offers shared use licensing. And what that really means is you have to obtain your actual license, and then you go into a shared use facility and you rent space from them for a period of a day, two, however long you need to manufacture your product. It's a great way to get in with not $1 million, you know. In my community in Santa Ana, we have a shared use thing they just put in, and the facility we're building will be a shared use facility. So we're, depending on how many companies can come in, we'll fit as many as we can, but it's for the entrepreneur who wants to create their own brand or product. And what they can do is they get their license, they get all of the necessary paperwork done. Once they're approved, they can go in, start manufacturing products. They can then set them into our distribution center right there in the facility and either go out and market them themselves or market them through our distribution channels. So for anyone that's really wanting to do their own thing, there's going to be opportunities there. And if you're not on that track and you want to go and work for a company, find a great company, even volunteer in the beginning, because a lot of these companies, they're running on a pretty thin budget, and they're going to pick the best players that will help their company succeed. So whether you're working for someone else or for yourself, I think that shared use license would be great for those that want to actually have their own thing. And like I said before, there's plenty of room for everybody. You know, there's some large companies out there that have come in and they've spent a lot of money, but they're not making a lot of money. And I think a lot of them approached it like the .com era, where, oh, no matter what you do, we're gonna make billions. And that's just not the case. You still got to work at it. You got to have a great product. And you don't even have to make a cannabis product. You can have an ancillary business, whether it's security or delivery. There's just so many options. So shared use, if you want to learn more about it, I'll be in there later, so you can come and tackle me and let me know what you need. Cheers.
On a shared use note, it's not only about the manufacturing, it's about the delivery system, right? And so, like, if I'm going to be training hundreds of cannabis clinicians this year, and they have thousands of patients, then we need patient access by delivery for sick people in the licensed system. So I need an integrated delivery system partner. But, you know, this whole business, you know, I was in wine before weed. And so people have always asked, how do you make a small fortune in wine? You start with a large one. It's pretty much the same with this, right? You start with a large fortune, you'll end up with a small one, because this is tough. You have to live frugal for years and years, and strategic alliances and partnerships is really the way to go. So partner up with somebody, find complementary skill sets that you have, ignite that passion, and stick to it and have patience and perseverance.
Anyone else on that one?
There are also incubator programs we run. We're part of one up in Oakland, where part of our factory, our facility, is actually dedicated to incubating local businesses. Those programs have a long way to go. We're trying to prop them up as much as we can, but there are some opportunities there. We've got some interest in some other smaller brands that we're trying to bring into the market, some local people up in Oakland as well. But if you look for them, they're out there, and again, I think they're waiting for people to really take advantage of them.
Great. Anyone else on opportunities for small entrepreneurs? Okay, we'll move on. Many job seekers are looking for insight into what makes a candidate stand out. Is cannabis-centric education, such as Oaksterdam University and the program from the San Diego Community College District, a valuable addition to the resume?
I would say yes. I think, like people were saying on the panel here, you know, your diversity and skills are very valuable, and the more you can bring on that note. But of course, if you have a basic education in hemp and cannabis, you could bring those elements that you learned to the table, whether that's in marketing or awareness or, so many aspects. And think about it, if you're the guy on the other side of the table or person on the other side of the table trying to decide who to hire, and two people are equal, and one went to a cannabis class or, had an internship, thought that was a very good idea about interning, they're going to get the job. So the more experience you can put on your resume, and of course, going to school and learning, it's sometimes embarrassing when people are involved in the industry and get asked a simple question and they're so far wrong, and that sort of plants the seed of that person goes home and then tells the next person, and some of those things are reinforced on the internet, but I think it's very important. So yes, and there's more and more opportunities. If you don't know, pretty much every UC system school is doing it. Every state system. It's the number one or one of the best job opportunities in America, and we're just at the beginning. So if you think about it, San Diego State started a gaming degree. Why? Because there's jobs in gaming. The same is happening with the UC system, and I think it'll be very common here soon to get an education. And when it comes to hemp and what we're involved in, one of our main targets are the youth. So that's something maybe businesses should think of too, is, investing in those schools and those people, because, it's like a cycle of smartness that we need to sort of get going.
So I just want to say that there are, really, if you're going for a position in a cannabis company, you should look at the CEOs and the folks that founded the organization, because there are two types of folks in cannabis right now. The legacy culture folks that have been around for a long time. They know what Prop 215 was. They know about the collective model. And then there's the other folks that don't know any of that, but they have Wall Street experience or some other kind of experience, and there's a little bit of I don't want to say competition, but you do have to address these competition. Okay, you do have to address these different types of cultures a little bit differently. So do go find out the history of cannabis. Do read Jack Herrera's book. There's a lot of books to read. You can ask me if you want a recommendation, but do find out the history of cannabis, especially in California, and then also brush up on other skills that transfer from industry to industry, so that if you do run into somebody who is of the research and kind of rejecting the legacy culture portion of the cannabis history, then you'll also have some skills to impress them with. So you want to go on two paths. Get your legacy information down, learn so that you can talk skillfully and knowledgeably about the history of cannabis, and also learn about who's running the company you want to work for and what kind of skills they have and what their background is, so that you can transfer your skills and try to impress them with that. Two different tracks here.
All right. So this one's an intriguing one. It's good though. So when I started Candescent, I was blessed to have a brother-in-law with a Harvard MBA. So, I think there's certain roles you got to look at in companies and what you're looking for. Obviously, a Harvard MBA to raise money looks really good. Some executives with names look really good. Skills. But, you also got to bring in the OGs, man. We deserve this shit. Pardon my language. But I've been around a while, and we're all here for a reason. It's because of us, and they need us more than we need them, to be quite frank. So I think you got to remember that there's levels where we got to have growth through an organization. And gardeners, to be quite frank, I found that I like gardeners that we could teach, because in scale, it's a whole new ball game. You can have a bunch of guys that have gardened their style, and they all bring in they implement what they do, and you have a garden that's just looking all over the place. So there's a whole different wide variety. You got to pick what you're looking for where you're at. You know, and then also on that topic, you know, if you're going to be in an organization, be selective if you're looking for that quick 5-year plan or that long term, you know, because that culture is going to be way different. And I highly suggest you really look at that because I'm here for a long time. The 5-year plan's a little brutal, but so I think if you're going quick, you know, the titles look a little bit better on paper and whatnot, but if you're looking to be in it for a while, man, we all got to learn and grow through this whole thing. That's really why we're all here. So, you know, I think you got to be selective on which way you look at it. So.
And it's not just about the growth of the industry and about your growth, but it's for the patients. So remember that we're here for the patients. And so one of the things, last month I was with a rep from a reputable company telling me that a 1-to-1 was half sativa, half indica. You know, and so when this is disseminating, when you're talking to patients, you need to be able to elaborate a 1-to-1 as CBD THC and how the CBD plays with the THC and how it mitigates the high and how it influences the inflammatory pathways. Maybe not to that extent, but you need to know the process of the plant. You need to know from the plant to the different extraction methods and what those mean for the patient. You need to know what a FECO oil is and how that's turned into tinctures and that process and how that flows through and the different routes of administration, because as we're trying to bridge this gap and bring more patients that are really sick into this system and say this really does work as a medicine, you guys need to be behind a counter somewhere or with the plant somewhere being able to elaborate on how exactly this does work and to allay their fears, because people out there are afraid. And if you come with confidence and knowledge, they'll listen to you. But if you're just making stuff up, they're not. So go to the training programs. Every bit of education you can is worth a pound of gold.
So I think, you know, this is a really interesting question, a lot of it because this industry is at a really interesting time. You know, you have the places like Oaksterdam and the schools offering that education. I believe that every year that this industry goes forward, those programs are going to become more and more important. And there's a lot of good information to be garnered from those programs. I think at the same time where our industry is right now, I think a lot of that information is available. You can go out and you can become self-taught. And I think as a business owner, if I'm looking to hire someone, it says just as much as that person had the drive and gusto to go out and take that bull by the horns and learn that stuff. You know, if I'm sitting down at the interview table and I'm talking to someone, if this person starts just rattling out information way beyond the job that they're looking for, just overall industry knowledge, it's going to impress me. And I'm going to say, hey, this person's passionate. This person took the time to learn this stuff. You know, whether it's going to apply to what they're trying to do as a job or not, they took the time to do it. That's what I want to see. What you have to understand is right now, almost everyone in this industry are entrepreneurs and risk takers. All of us have taken the risk to be here. We understand what it's like. I don't have a college degree in cannabis cultivation. That doesn't exist. I went out and figured it out and did it. And so I can identify that in somebody else. If someone has that same drive to do it, at the interview table, I'm going to see that. I think it also comes down to what skills from the outside world do you bring in. I mean, if you have sales experience and marketing experience, if you're a digital website designer, something like that, those are all going to carry right in. And I think you'll be able to move into these companies doing that. Again, I think if you've been a website designer for the last 10 years, polish up on cannabis, learn everything there is to be learned, and you're going to impress me when you come in and say, hey, I want to be your in-house designer. I'll be like, that's great, you did a bunch of stuff for Coke and Pepsi, what do you know about cannabis? If you can rattle off a bunch of facts and information beyond design, it's going to impress me, I'm going to want you on board. So I think those are really, you know, key things to bring in. Education's good, those classes are good. At the same time, it's an industry made by entrepreneurs. We understand that entrepreneur spirit. If you have the drive and you're self-taught, we're going to accept that also.
Yeah, I think everything said here is just right on. We try to maintain that OG mentality at Jetty. Our founders are all still involved, and it's something that means a lot to us, but at the same time, we want that traditional business experience. And like everyone's saying, you know, I think it's probably true of most types of businesses in this industry. We didn't get into this business because we're trying to maintain the status quo or we're at risk averse, right? We want to take some chances. And for me personally, I've looked at lots of resumes, seen lots of applicants through my career, and I think this industry maybe probably more than just about any other would allow you to take some chances in how you present yourself to a company. And so I think be creative, you know, the same everyone's seen that basic statement on LinkedIn or your resume about you're passionate this, that, or the other thing. It sort of gets old and stale, right? But how do you mix that up? How do you cut through? I think some of that's true of any type of job application, but in this industry maybe more than others. I'm impressed by people who take a little bit more of a risk and try to show me something.
Yeah, I was thinking that on that note too in the back of my head. It's still possible to do cool things, right? I mean, everyone can just, do something cool. I mean, there's so many ways to do that. So, smoke a lot and get creative. But the thing is, you got to make sure that you think about it also when you're not high, so you sort of get it, so you sort of gauge that.
Yeah, I'll add, be a self-starter. Like, for me, if I had someone come into my office and want a job, I don't really want to have to guide them. I'd like them to already kind of know what they want to do and what they can bring, and let them be autonomous. Allow them to kind of be their own boss. Lynn had mentioned before about doctors and education. One of the things I do probably more than anything is I consult probably 15 people a week for every type of disease or disorder. And I realize there's a huge gap in this industry with consulting, not business to business, but personal cannabis consulting on how to teach people how to use cannabis therapeutically, and not say, hey, you got to smoke this blunt and then you're gonna be great, you'll be fine. So there's another industry that, and we're going to be working together for sure, because you're right on my track with this. I met with the mayor and city manager of South Orange County city, and if all goes well, we'll open the first cannabis wellness and rehabilitation center in Orange County. Yeah, it's a lot of people don't realize this, but the highest opioid overdose is in South Orange County. Bigger than San Diego, LA, Sacramento. It's the worst. I have two sons, 21 and 20. 3 of their friends have died in the last year and a half from opioid overdose. So I've witnessed the ability for people to get off of almost any drug, including alcohol, with cannabis. It's not an entry drug, it's an exit gateway drug. It will help our nation heal. And we have veterans in the group calling right here. We're good friends. We have 22 veterans a day killing themselves. And usually it's come back from war, go to the VA, here's your drugs, they mix with alcohol, they go into depression. The worst statistic I could present is since we started our wars with Afghanistan, about 7,500 men and women have died in combat. In that same period of time, 128,000 have come home and committed suicide. So the war is here, it's not over there. And coincidentally, all the opium comes from Afghanistan. So it's like a circle of death. And I'm not going to blame any companies in particular, but we know who they are. So find your niche and work at it, self-start. Bring more to the table than they're bringing to you, and you'll go far. You definitely will. So, yeah.
Okay, we're just about out of time, so we'll let our panelists give their final thoughts on getting involved in the cannabis community.
Thanks, you guys, for being here. It's really, really cool to see this nice room of beautiful faces. The final thoughts are, please come to my meeting. It's Tuesday at Elijah's Restaurant on Claremont Mesa Boulevard and 805. We are a really tight-knit family that loves to have new people come in. And I can see a lot of our regulars here in the room. I guarantee you, just as I've done with many people, including Amy here, when they call me, I ask to meet with them, and then I find out what kind of things they want to connect with in the industry. Amy had a need for cannabis medicine. She's sick. I sorted her out. We just take care of each other. So please come to any meetings. I also want to, Ed, are you still here? Ed Wicker? I saw you walk in. Ed runs a meeting on the second Tuesday, I believe, or second Saturday.
Second Saturday of each month is Wally Encinitas, not the one on the coast, that's the one the DEA goes to.
Right on. Okay, so there's two meetings you could go to. Please show up, and we do a lot of fun stuff, and we will make sure that you feel very welcome.
I guess my final thoughts on entry into the industry. I think, a couple years ago, there was the big green rush, and then all the stuff came and companies popped up everywhere, and it might seem a little overwhelming to think, oh my God, everyone's out there started in branding, and I haven't even started. There's not going to be any room for me, or it's millions of dollars to get going, or whatever. Right now, it's very expensive to get in. That's true. But I can say that this industry is just in its infancy. We've only been around, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be here for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and it's only going to grow over that time period. So if you don't have the millions to get in right now, develop your skill set. Come up with something unique. Start making strategic partnerships, finding people that are like-minded and share your passion, and create working groups to go forward. And from there, when you develop your skill set, you either sit back and wait for it to mature, or you get out there, become an activist, and you push that along further. If you want a job in 3 or 4 years, then develop your skill set and hang out. If you want a job next year, get out there, write letters to your elected representatives, work with like-minded people, get out there in the streets and get active, and you can get into this industry sooner and cheaper than you thought possible.
Thank you. Sorry, you have to say that. Yeah, no, I think right now we're going to see this next wave coming, like I said. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to start something, might be a good time to even take a job, get some, I call it paid internship, go look at what you want to do. Go work for somebody, learn it for a little bit as these more licenses come online. Be ready, but, at the end of the day, I don't work for a living. I wake up and have fun every day. And I suggest that's what we all should be doing in this room. So, look at what you like. Look at you wake up with passion, something that's going to drive you that you just would do anyway, your gift that you're here to provide to this industry. Because I think if we look at this industry, what we could give to the industry, it's going to start to thrive a lot quicker. So yeah, just basically get up, have fun, and let it grow kind of. I think it's such almost kind of chaos lately. It's going to adapt around you. As long as you have a good attitude every day, I'm pretty sure you're going to find your way. Thanks.
So my parting thoughts is please join our organization, the USHBA, the U.S. Hemp Building Association. We're trying to get basically everything built out of hemp, hemp plastic, hemp boards, hemp everything. And with hempcrete, it's carbon negative. The number one source of CO2 pollution in the world is construction. 46% of CO2 comes from construction. Cars and all transportation's 33%, to put it in perspective. Hemp is carbon negative. So literally we could clean the sky ASAP if we just change. And it's a superior product. It saves energy. It's fireproof, which is, of course, a big issue here. It's energy saving, all good things about it. So basically, for less than $10 a month to become a member, or $5 if you're a student, you can invest in the best, surest way to save our species and every other species, or most species, let's say. So we're on a time clock. This is super, super important. Now, we've gotten past, hopefully, this whole cannabinoid excuse for not using this plant. Now it's time to accrue our power, economically, politically. So invest in this with your actions, deeds, everything. Consume it. Tell a friend. Advocate to everyone you know. So super important. Please check it out, ushba.org. Again, you could do anything in action or with money or definitely consumption. Thank you.
Yeah, baby. So I would say that we're kind of in the perfect storm right now in our nation. We have elections coming up in November, and both parties are grabbing onto the cannabis coattails and trying to utilize that as a way for them to vote. So regardless of who wins, hopefully cannabis will move and hemp will move in the right direction. My feeling is this, all mammals are symbiotic with cannabis. And I believe that there are 4 elements to life, for quality life, and they are air, food, water, and cannabis. All right? So get out there, spread the good herb, and you know, I don't know if there's any consumption here, but you know, yeah, we'll figure something out. Yeah. There you go. I love the van. I live down by the river. Okay, guys, well, get out there and enjoy your day, and thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
You know, we're writing this story in real time, and the changes, the opportunity never stop, and the challenges never stop. And for some people, that's super exciting. For other people, that may be daunting. I think you have to take a hard look at that and what you really want out of your career. But if that excitement and the ability to write the story the way you want to write it is appealing to you, then go after it. And when you go after it, approach it in that vein, right? Be creative, take some chances, and go for it. We'd love to have you. Cheers.
There's 7 billion people on the planet, and every one of them has an ECS, right? So we've got 130 people dying of pharmaceuticals and opiates every single day, and just in this country. And so if you know a patient that is on the fence and doesn't know how to use cannabis as medicine, have them go to holisticcaring.com. I've got nurses in San Diego, Palm Desert. If you know a healthcare professional, and everybody here has a care provider, send them to holisticcaring.com, and I'll teach them, because every one of them I train, that increases our numbers tenfold, right? And so I'm also on the board of the American Cannabis Nurses Association. So we're recruiting nurses. If anybody wants to join as a healthcare professional, let me know. So cannabisnurses.org. We are 1,500 nurses strong, and hopefully we're going to double and triple actually by the end of this year. So there's all kinds of exciting things coming, and so help me and we'll help each other all together. So thank you.
Okay, thanks to our panel, and thanks you all for coming.
Thank you, everyone. If you could just please hold your seats for one more second. I just wanted to add, just speaking in, being creative and looking for jobs, a statistic that was put out December of 2018 by PBS. 85% of jobs that today's students will do in 2030 don't exist yet. The Institute for the Future has predicted this, so that's 10 years now, that 85% of students in school in 2030 will have a job that does not exist yet. So go and create yours. Thank you so much.